Doctor Who Corner to Corner podcast. My name's Geoff. I've got my third Dr. Sonic screwdriver because tonight we're taking a look at episodes 3 and 4 of the Demons, Third Doctor classic. I'm joined by that man waffling, whose name is.
That's me. Yeah. Hello, I'm Paul. Good to meet you.
How are you today?
Yeah, I'm all right, mate. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, even though you did just completely rubbish the film Dune. I will forgive you, and we can move on and never mention it again, Mr. Avatar.
I don't think he rubbished it. I think he merely cast some
delivered a very vicious comment in derogatory designation of my most favourite thing in the world. How very dare he?
Let's put it this way. I've endured a lot of Avatar hate from you.
He has. This is very true.
The
difference is, though, I've actually watched Avatar twice, 1 and 2. So there you go. You're just slagging June off without even actually watching it, like the Muppet. Like one of those internet trolls who just fires stuff out from his chair.
Where's my chili spice? Oh, there's a big worm. There you go, that's June in
Anyway,
a nutshell.
and our third guest, over in the corner there.
The same one. Is our good friend Al Dewar? Good evening.
I am. Although tonight I'm Dan O'Cafalata.
I noticed that on your little name thing there. It's quite interesting. That
is that Banner Cafalata's cousin?
It is. It's a distant cousin.
Cousin twice removed.
On the O'Cafalata side.
Ba-boom. I thought that was a cappuccino.
Cosplay last time, so
that cosplay was pretty good. Oh, tell you what, we need to sort out where we're going to go live and where we're going to cosplay as well. We need to sort that out.
Wait, you never told me anything about cosplaying. I don't have to cosplay, do I? Do I?
You were going to be the
Have
third
I got to
Doctor.
dress up?
Yeah.
Yes.
yes.
I'm up for that, mate. I don't mind dressing up. Whatever you want me dressed up as. I'm there.
June.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've got my Fremen suit out. Yeah.
Look at my worm.
I can't believe you're quoting. Is it Fast Show? It is, isn't it? Not even one of the most popular characters. One of the most annoying Charlie Higson characters.
Black, Jonny. Black.
Anyway, what we're talking about tonight, gents?
Clearly nothing sensible.
Yeah, well, let's not.
I believe we're here to tackle episodes 3 and 4
of the Demons. The Demons. If anyone
we talked over episodes 1 and especially 2 the last time, we probably should pay attention this time.
Well,
it depends how long Geoff's going to be doing Fast Show skits really badly.
It's a cassette.
Oh God! You see what I have to put up with.
Bar, white sheep. Right. Shall we press play? I hope anyone listening knows.
Before Paul loses it.
Cuts off.
You've massively insulted his favourite film, and we're not improving the situation.
Really not. Right. Okay. On the count of 3, 2, 1.
1, 2, 3.
Go.
There we go.
Go.
We've got the red diamond coming up out of my screen like some. It's gone green now, and there's lovely Pertwee's face.
Yeah.
Ah, look at him there with his little smile.
There. Just up there on my
and
shelf.
His little Doctor Who comes swirling in like.
Yeah.
I love these graphics. They're just brilliant. I love them.
Takes
Full
me
of
back.
atmosphere.
These are one of my this and Tom Baker, but this is still very dear to me. Set of opening titles.
And we got in Pertwee's final series that like almost proto Baker kind of thing, didn't we? Where it was him coming out of the screen with his arms crossed, looking very, very doctorish and what have you.
Isn't it weird that both in sort of Tom and John Pertwee's last season, the graphics changed?
Changed, yeah. I've often thought this, Al. Often thought it. How strange that is.
The titles are normally.
I really don't like controversial comment of the week, but I really don't like the 80s title screens.
That is a controversial comment.
Really?
I love them. I think they're amazing. I love the Starfield. The Starfield
came about space, not time.
Yeah, but that's fine because it's a show that happens in time and space, Al.
That is true. That is true.
Adventures in time and space.
Look at Bok, he's so
Bok
cool.
the Mock.
You think he looks cool, Geoff?
Yeah, I do.
He looks
He's
amazing.
brilliant.
Yeah. Are you going to cosplay as Bok? Has he got have a little frankfurter sticking between your lips? I've got something.
Got the head movement down.
Yeah. He's got the Silurian head wobble going on there.
What are you accusing me of?
Meanwhile, Roger Delgado,
be a
the
treat.
master, is in raptures.
That's
Look at
his
that.
tongue, isn't it? Not a
That's his little
frankfurter.
sausage, mate. It's half a cocktail sausage hanging
It's
out.
got an old
as well.
Basil brush. Has anyone seen my little Willy? Yes.
Boom, boom. Now you've definitely shown your age now, Al.
Yeah. Basil brush, fabulous.
Yeah, God, I
I
remember
remember
that.
Basil Brush, yeah.
Yeah. We're not too far away, mate. Don't worry.
There's variation, isn't there, where they go from whimsical to sort of deadly serious. I think Perry was quite good at that as well, wasn't he? At changing the atmos in the room.
Yeah. And actually, when he dropped those little comedy lines, he did them in a very serious way. Like at the start of this, that one where, is it somewhere in this when he's remote controlling Bessie or something, and he just, no, where is it? It's at the end of Inferno when he just turns up on a rubbish heap after trying to get away and has to come crawling back to the Brigadier, knowing that he's stuck on Earth for the foreseeable, and he just has that little sort of sheepish look. Yeah. But for a guy who was known up until this point as playing comedy roles and doing some really ridiculous characters, and for him to play the Doctor so seriously coming after Troughton as well, and he nailed it, absolutely, 100% nailed it.
He did. I wonder if it's funny, isn't it? Because he massively embraced it, and he became almost insistent, even well into Tom Baker's era, that he kind of was the ultimate Doctor when he did appearances. But I wonder if he ever felt constrained by that. Because I agree with you, he was massively well known for comedy.
But you're right, he is quite a sort of serious Doctor, but he always feels to me a bit like there's a warmth there, particularly towards Joe. And there's a humour and also, the flamboyance and the kind of general coolness, but he kind of it's kept in check a little bit, and he's kind of more focused and serious on the things that are happening. But when he lets the armour down a little bit,
lets the comedy creep in a little bit. But he does it without breaking character, doesn't he? That's the thing. He's just
perfectly within.
This is putting Villa Diodata to shame. What's going on here?
I mean, it isn't actually, but we'll go with it, Al. Why not? I'm sure I saw some string attached to that vase there as it was yanked back.
It's quite. I think this is
A little
quite
bit of fishing wire,
trope, isn't it? that the Doctor Who, right into Tom Baker's time, had this sort of archetypal old guy in authority who was a bit of a bumbling fool and would come undone, further down the line.
Oh yes, you're absolutely right.
There was always the man from the Ministry. Chin.
The man from the Ministry. That's it, Mr. Chin. Yeah. From Exos.
I've heard claims that the new series is very scary, and I am really hoping that
you do like a good scare, don't you?
I do, and I'm hoping that episode with Ruby, when she comes back and there's a sort of spiky-headed thing that's like leaping over the wall. Man, I hope that's a cracking, spooky one. I really do, and doesn't end up turning into some sort of MP's political rally again or something.
I have no idea. I actually genuinely know nothing about the series 2 at all. Nor have I seen the trailer, but everyone is talking about it. So it sounds like it's hitting us like no. So that's good.
Well, there's quite a few trailers out there now, isn't there? They've done a few variations,
and it's looking really good. And what's interesting is that they filmed it all immediately after series 1, so it'd be interesting to see kind of what it's like if it's consistently good and all of that kind of thing, because it's not like they did series 1, took any feedback and then went into making series 2. They just
that's an interesting one, and I can't really talk about anything to do with that series, but my experience of that is that won't be entirely true. What they will have done towards the end of the first series, I would imagine, would be writing stuff for the second series. But there's always a bit of downtime, I know from the past, where even if you were doing a series back to back, as these essentially read as, they would have a certain point where they're having script meetings and design meetings and a whole load of other stuff. So I think I agree with you. I think it probably was closer than a lot of people imagine. But if you imagine back in the heydays of 2005, 2006, that's exactly what they were doing back then. They were going straight from Eccleston's stories into David Tennant, but there would always be a sort of gap and a bit of design and costume designs. That, like I said,
a little bit of time.
I don't know enough about it, but there's a modicum of a gap for sure. It's only because people are exhausted usually. Working on these things. So
it's interesting how much TV production has changed over the last couple of years, isn't it? You know, you don't really get the big 20-odd episode seasons anymore.
Yeah.
I was thinking that, and I was even watching. So I'm in the middle of watching Space 1999 on ITVX.
Now you're talking.
Which I've rediscovered, which is brilliant, and even things like Battlestar Galactica.
Oh yes.
They had such long seasons.
Big seasons. Yeah.
And a lot of the shows that that did, you know, so like I'm thinking of stuff like Buffy or you know, my wife watches Grey's Anatomy, for example. Stuff that's kind of
a lot of the American shows. It's like a treadmill, isn't it? They churn them out.
And a number of kind of standing sets that they can go back to, where something like Game of Thrones or, you know, Who is
much shorter
and much bigger in its scale and number of sets and things like that. So on one hand, I kind of understand why, you know, you don't get 20 episode series anymore. You know, when you're aiming much higher with your production, but it is a shame that you know, we don't get those big blocks on stuff anymore.
I think to be fair though, in favour of the shorter seasons, the sort of 10, 12 episode seasons, I think generally you're right, the scale tends to be bigger, but I think the storytelling is quite often a lot tighter as well.
Yeah, I mean, that is true. Although
Battlestar Galactica is a really good example. If you think that the original 70s series out, then it's quite a lot of episodes. But to my mind, the only ones that are anyway good are like the first 3 or 4 episodes. So you get the invasion of Caprica, and then there's the whole thing afterwards, and then it kind of goes into like a bit of a sort of just, you know, rehash of various kind of stories that have been done before in various other things. They're fun to watch, and then it comes back again towards the end, so you get that massive dip in the middle, then it sort of slide upwards, which
I think
can happen.
That's true, and I think some shows, you know, thinking again like Buffy, you know, because of its format, you know, it's a little bit like Doctor Who in a way, in that it can be something different every week, albeit, you know, in the same environment, you know, different creatures and things because of the Hellmouth. But Paul and I were talking about Veronica Mars before we went on to it, and that's one of my favourite shows, and that's 20 odd episodes in each season, and in my memory of it, and I haven't watched it for a couple of years now, but it was, you know, all killer, no filler. Every episode had its own standalone case to it, but bits to do with the overall series arc. And I remember that show being so tightly plotted that if you missed an episode, you may well have lost a really important.
Remember, there's a sort of heydays of when, and I suspect it's probably why they don't do it anymore. Is you know, that was the heyday of the writers' room where they had, you know, 6 or 7 writers and possibly more involved full time. Somebody said this is the arc, come up with stories to fill it in, and if they didn't like, if they didn't like one, they could kind of drop it out and vice versa.
Yeah,
but
it's not really like that now.
This is why I kind of miss this era of Doctor Who in a way, because you've got like, was it 20? There's 20 odd episodes in this season, isn't there, with the Demons? So you've got you've got 3 6-parters, a couple of 4-parters, and you know, and the Master is not really an arc, but he's here in every story. But those episodes, those 20 odd episodes, are all broken down into individual stories, aren't they? So each individual story is kind of plotted and written in a certain way, and then you go from story to story. So you've got that serialized nature of the long season, half-hour episodes weekly. But there's different stories that are quite clearly defined within that. They're not trying to continue the interest throughout the whole of. Well, they are actually in this one, bizarrely, because we got the Master in it. So it's, here's the Master again. What's he up to this time, kind of thing. But, generally, it's not quite.
It is, and you have to remember. I mean, we say it's a half-hour show. It was a 20, usually between 22.
Yeah, it's sort of 23 minutes.
And quite often a recap at the beginning. So they were essentially, I reckon if you can condense. I can't speak today. If you condense these stories down, I don't think episodically you'd necessarily be far away from what they were doing with Doctor Who in the 80s, where you might have to part with 40 minutes on either side.
Once you get rid of the recap and stuff like that. So Al, what was it about Pertwee's Doctor that kind of drew you in when you first saw him?
Honestly, I think it was. So here's the weird thing. I can't remember when we got a colour TV, but I do remember, as a child of a middle-class family, I do remember that we were not too far behind the curve in getting a colour TV. I certainly remember the colour TV sort of turning up. And it wouldn't have been, and I think the thing about Doctor Who was, I think we saw it at the beginning, when you get that splash of colour, nowadays with HD, you've got that, suffusion of different colours and quite complex colours and stuff. But back then there was some very, like I say, the metallic sheen on Pertwee's shoulder there. It was a startling kind of oversaturation, I suppose, in a way. So I certainly remember that. And the other thing I remember was, maybe it was just as a kid, but I remember more merchandise being around.
Okay.
For Jon Pertwee. But it was, it was Saturday night viewing. Him as a person, I think he was just very different. I've openly admitted I don't find the first or second Doctor, it's a heinous thing to say, but I don't find either them or their stories particularly compelling, especially the first Doctor. I do like Patrick Troughton. I think some of his stories are good, but they were done in that era where Dalek Invasion of Earth is like 12 parts or something.
6 parts.
Is it 6?
Yeah, it just feels like 12.
What was some of it?
Dalek Master Plan was 12 parts, wasn't it?
Yeah, 12. Yeah,
that was a big one.
12 parts. It's like, wow.
I wonder if you went back to the first Doctor, you might reevaluate. Well, not reevaluate, but it might
look at it again.
Yeah, because in my head, he's grumpy and he's curmudgeon-y and he's a grumpy old man. And then I started watching some of it, when it came out in the collection and things, and I remember saying to Paul, he's a bit of a laugh, actually.
He is.
And I was quite astonished at how...
I've watched some, but by the way, I have to say, I've watched quite a lot of the first Doctor.
Yes,
that's
I'm
why
sure,
I'm familiar with them. But, if you had to pin your colours to a mast, I'd be pinning Jon Pertwee and Tom Baker.
They all.
I think that's just.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Sorry,
I remember when Chris Chibnall. Oh, that's cool.
He's made someone disappear. Yeah.
Chibnall described Who as was it like an anthology?
It is, yeah. It's like an anthology series to a degree, isn't it?
And you got the whole thing, but I don't think if a part of this book, this series, doesn't resonate with you the same way some of the other parts of it do, that's fine. I think So the fact that 3 and 4 are more you know, that they resonate for you, Al.
I'm sure it's to do with adolescence. I'm sure it's to do with,
Yeah.
you know, you get an understand. You're beginning. It was the beginning of me beginning to understand more complex storylines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think it happens in music as
Just
well.
watching Mike Yates get a flying helmet thrust to his guts.
Yeah.
So you two carry on. I'll watch the show.
No, I'm the same. It's like,
Oh, that was quite a
He
nice point of
smacks
view
him
shot
on
there.
there.
Whoa.
This is great. I mean, this is a little fight on the village green here, and
this guy's got a force field.
it's
Yeah,
he's strong.
judo
He's stronger than
chopped
he
it.
looks. They actually hired that chopper in, or it's not a chopper, is it? Just standard helicopter, but they got it in for the filming day.
You wouldn't be allowed to do that. No,
No, land on a village green. Bloody hell.
Yeah.
Well, not even that. Just, you know, given the amount of helicopter accidents on set,
Yeah.
you know,
There's a motorbike behind you, Mike. Way, there he goes. Grab that motorbike.
Paul, is there a difference between a chopper and a helicopter?
I think the chopper's a type of model. Like you get a chopper bike, don't
Really?
you? I think so.
There's
I'm
a
not.
bike. But
Yeah.
I'm thinking of get to the chopper. Let's get to the helicopter.
Maybe it is. I don't know.
Well, that is a very good question, and I don't know the answer.
we have to.
I think it's one and the same because the Get to the Chopper was a Huey helicopter, so it wasn't like a little bug.
Yeah, I always
thing.
thought just a chopper was just short for helicopter.
You could be right. You
Heli-chopper.
could be right.
Yeah.
I'm not professing to be any kind of expert in helicopter design for the last however many years. It's very much an amateur field with me, you might say.
Do you know, talking of Arnie, which we weren't, but we now are, there's another...
Where'd that come from?
well,
I thought we were talking about Doctor Who. But
not
yeah,
know
go on,
what-
let's talk about Arnie.
Get to the chopper.
I nearly directed Doctor Who in 1987.
Get to the TARDIS. There's another Predator film coming out later this year. And if,
Well, that's exciting, isn't it?
if you've seen Prey,
Prey is very good.
it's the
Yeah,
same
it's
director.
on my watch list actually. I've just
It's a
got
great
got
film.
a life to live before I get to it.
I hands down, yeah, that's one of the better films. I also watched Alien Romulus recently, and I thought that was fabulous.
That's quite good
Oh,
fun.
did
Yeah.
you like it? I thought it
Yeah.
started out really well, and then it didn't have enough aliens in it for me.
There's a couple of massively contrived bits, but I actually enjoy it.
The bit with the face
I thought it was
huggers
alright.
is excellent.
Yeah, when they come running after everyone through the corridors,
yeah,
isn't it? That's
in
quite
the
good
water.
fun.
That's questionable as well, because obviously they've got the helicopter and it's chasing the car, but they're clearly doing shots of the pursuit with the helicopter, and
Yes.
that's very close.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you
They won't be allowing that
it's
these
a bit
day and
like
age.
the bit where the
There's some good fighting though.
the helicopter chases the liquid nitrogen truck in Terminator 2. Talking of Arnie.
Oh, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. God, good lord, that sequence in that film.
It's
Amazing.
stuff like that. They're miles away, and the director's notes are gesticulate. Don't go near the barrier.
Let's blow up the chopper / helicopter. Yeah, gesticulate. Remind everyone there's a barrier there. The Master's happy because the Doctor
Joe.
has been destroyed. Except he hasn't, but Joe's taken one to the head. This is not in a good way. Mike jumps off his triumph.
Joe,
Ow, how many...
She had a nasty
How
knock on the
many,
head. She'll be all right.
How many
What?
Joe
Don't leave me
Grant
hanging.
figures have you made?
strangely, 2,
Two.
Really, just 2?
just 2. I would go
The
back
Doctor's next to his
and
bike.
I would go back and attempt to remake it. So here was the weird thing, and you shouldn't talk ill of talent, and I'm not going to talk ill of talent because I was talking about Katie. Because she actually came to the studio when we were sculpting her figure
Yeah.
and got scanned because it's always useful to see. But it's interesting because she had a certain thing which many older actors have, which is they have an image in their head of how they see themselves. And we tried very hard to do the young Katie Manning, but she insisted on us airing more to the older Katie Manning.
Right.
So you will see in that particular sculpt or figure a slight inconsistency in the sort of way Joe looks. And it was purely and simply down to the fact that she like I say, her image of herself is quite different.
There we go. Just going to say there, actually, sorry to interrupt, but we got Sergeant Osgood referred to by name for the first time.
Yes, which is excellent, isn't it?
Yeah, there he is with the glasses. Who is related, obviously, to what's her name in the modern series? Petronella Osgood. There you go.
Yeah. And who also looks like a very young Adrian Edmondson. Oh yes, it's a pepperami. I swear to God,
I believe he's tooling with you, sir. Yeah.
That's quite, going back to what you're saying now, that's quite interesting, because sometimes Hot Toys put out, well, they put out figures, but sometimes it takes ages for stuff to get a proper release and to come out, and apparently it's because the actor license sign off takes ages for some people. I think apparently
it takes a long time, and there's an age-old trick, which is you say you've made the changes, but you haven't.
yeah.
Which works as long as you take photographs and reference from a different point of view, and you can kind of, and they haven't sort of seen it twice. But you've always got a filter. That's the thing with talent approval. So it goes to an agent first, then it goes to the person. But we were lucky with Jo when she came in. She was fabulous. She was great. And I've met Katie. I've met Katie a few times. And she's an absolute hoot.
We were going to get her once, weren't we, Paul? But it never.
I beg your pardon.
We were going to get her on, weren't we? But never realised.
Yeah.
But she doesn't do many podcasts, and I think
she doesn't. I think she likes doing live stuff in the moment, because it gives her. I think it gives her the ability to kind of be like, okay, I'm done, I'm going.
Yeah.
Or to be like, stay, kind of, we'll carry on. I think it gives her a bit of that control over that. But she's a fantastically nice person.
Yeah.
Really is, and very, very, very on the ball about a whole load of stuff.
She follows me on Twitter, actually, which is lovely, and we've exchanged a few messages because she's got twins as well. So we've had conversations along the lines of, "Does it get easier, Katie?" and she's been very helpful there. And interestingly, her husband composed the Neighbours theme tune, I believe.
Yes, I mean, like, one of the conversations I had with her was exactly that. She had a whole load of stuff going on, and she was back and forward to Australia and various things. Are we going next episode in 11?
Yes, I think so.
9?
5. Yeah, so just let it roll.
Just let it run.
We'll all be a couple of seconds out.
Well,
that is his time.
I thought that episode was very good. I think if I was being brutal, I think there was a chunk of filler. There was a lot of exposition and standing around in halls.
There was also a helicopter motorbike chase scene and some explosions and stuff, and a fisticuffs fight on the village green. And I mean, come on,
with the guy with
exciting
the
stuff,
which was quite impressive.
And then, of course, it just ended there, didn't it? Which we were talking over, but it's I was going to say the arisal of Azal.
I love this.
The rousing of Azal, the arrival, the growth of Azal, the erection of Azal. I don't know. He gets bigger, doesn't he? He's looking down on the master there, and his presence causes some turmoil.
This is one of the few cases I think we've got a fabulous set of internal or inside sets. That crypt set is fantastic.
Yeah, it's really nicely lit,
full of atmosphere.
Yeah.
And yet you've got very nice sort of on location outside stuff going on as well.
Yeah, and that looks like a proper machine there lugging around there, doesn't it? You know, that equipment. It's all just prop, but it looks like it's going to do something good.
But it's
So-
great.
It's not just a bit of
there's
Bakelite and
there's-
plastic.
There's little, all those flagstones have got glyphs on them and stuff. It all looks a little bit kind of.
Did we just see the master there threatening Azar with a hat stand like
I
Turlo
believe
in
so.
Frontius?
Was it a hat stand or was it a?
I don't know if it was. It looked like a
maybe it
hat
was,
stand to me actually, but
a
probably
candle.
candelabra, wasn't it? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
That's what it was.
So, I've got a question for you. After we talked about ghosts last time, what what mythical creature, cryptozoology, are you interested in, and what would you like to see turn up in a Doctor Who?
Sorry, I'm just going to have to say before you do, this is incredibly dangerous for an actor to do now. This is back in the day, health and safety being somebody else's problem, isn't it? Get out, crawl out that window, across the flat roof, and down the step ladders, Joe. Completely, nobody's holding them or anything like that. Just
Yeah.
go and do it. You know, they wouldn't do that nowadays.
No, and what she says constantly is she couldn't see a bloody thing. And
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, that as well.
and still to this day can't. She's actually fairly seriously impeded on her vision.
Yeah.
And you know, she has talked to me like the few times I've met her about this thing of, you know, sort of being
Blind as about.
First, the polarity.
compromised.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've
Sorry,
got-
Geoff, what were you saying?
Yeah. What mythical creature are you interested in, and would you like to see turn up in a Doctor Who story? I'm talking Mothman, Bigfoot, Nessie, Chupacabra, that sort of thing.
Okay, so that's quite an interesting one. Being of Scottish ancestry, I love a lot of the
wrinkly
old
stockings.
Scottish folk tales. So I love things like the Kelpie,
Yeah.
who sort of come on land and take. You know, there's a lot of Scottish folklore about children being stolen away, and
Yeah.
I also think I love the idea of, you know, if you look at old maps, they have that whole thing of, and it was genuine, you know, here be dragons and
Yeah.
sirens
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And I think the sea has, for centuries and for generations, been a place where weird shit can go down. And
It's the idea
you
of
know-
the boundary, isn't it? You know, that place where
Yeah.
one landscape ends and another starts. You know, the place between
we
land
are
and sea. One world and
100%
another.
creatures of, you know, it's things like the tales of the ancient mariner. You know, there's so
Yeah.
many tales of like
Yeah.
the wind just stopping dead and
Yeah.
essentially being marooned. So I think those kind of things, those coastal things, will-o'-the-wisps and stuff, I do like stuff like that, the sort of slightly supernatural. I always think there's no smoke without fire to a
Yeah.
certain degree.
Right.
These things don't come from nowhere.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. Whether they are exactly as
Yeah,
they
yeah,
are
yeah.
handed down is a very different question. But I would love to see things like mermaids, kelpies, will-o'-the-wisps. Anything that's slightly ethereal, I really like.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Interesting.
It's a little bit on the sort of unexplained, which
Yeah.
is why, you know, I loved. I didn't, and it's amazing. I really didn't like it the first time I watched it, but it's now, I think, probably my favorite of the 60th, which is the Wide Blue Yonder, and that thing of
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah.
things being,
The
you know,
weird
if you
thing.
invoke
Yeah.
folklore. And I remember my mum saying to
salt.
me, "There's, you know, there is a thing such as evil, and you don't let it in." And it was all very vague, but you know, she was very, you know, you never invite evil in. You know, the idea of us bringing home a Ouija board and stuff.
Yeah.
She'd have done her nut. You know.
But I think you're right, Al. You know, there's no smoke without fire, and you know all these stories have, you know, existed for centuries, and you know things crop up in local areas, or, you know, all the time and stuff. And you know, I think it may not be what people, perceive it to be. There might be a rational explanation, but I do like the idea that there are things out there that we don't necessarily know or understand.
I think the danger with all these things is it's very difficult to prove they, sorry, what I meant to say is you can't really prove them either way definitively. The people that have experienced it are 100% convinced. The people that haven't experienced, arguably, are not 100% convinced. And I think that's healthy, other than if you're a flat earther, in which case you're just stupid.
I think it's a nice wellspring for stories. And I think, for me, this is where all of that comes from. I think it's people in one way trying to understand the world and not perhaps having the quite the vocabulary for it, and things persist through stories told over generations. And as is the case with the game of Chinese Whispers, things get embellished or they get refined or change or somehow over time, and accumulate like a sort of rolling stone, a sort of legendary mythical status that arguably could be so far removed from its original intent that it just has no resemblance to it at all, And I think, well, hold on. I think that the idea of smoke without fire, I know where you guys are coming from. For me, I'm not big on that, but I like the power of the stories that spring off from this stuff.
Oh, she's down here.
I agree, and I kind of agree with you, Paul, in a way, because before Christianity there was pagans, and the pagans kept people in line by telling them stories of what would happen to them if they kind of didn't do what God or whatever it was in charge wanted to do. Then
humanity is great at inventing its own monsters.
Yeah, and we basically terrify you and say if you don't go to church and pay your taxes and be good, you're getting into heaven. So that's control again.
Exactly. Yeah, and don't worry now about being poor or anything, or doing what you're told. It's all good, because when you die, you're gonna be okay. Honest. Yeah. If you don't do as we tell you, then when you die, it's really not gonna be okay. But if you do as we tell you, when you die, everything's gonna be great. You will definitely be rewarded. Trust me on this.
It's the old witch thing, isn't it? You throw her in the pond and she drowns. She was okay, and if you turn and drown, if she doesn't drown,
well, she's a witch, so kill her anyway. Yeah, exactly. which again is like it's again. I mean, that's a very patriarchal system, isn't it? Keep the old ladies in line. We don't want them doing things that don't tie into what we want them to do. They're practicing herbology and curing people. Well, we don't want that. We can't let these old ladies have control. Witches, burn the witch. So
exactly. I mean, and again, a different take on that is, I think if you look at prehistory and the kind of structures that people were building back then, there is no doubt that simple things like the sun coming up each morning and the stars coming out at night were enough of a miracle.
Yeah, wondrous.
Enough of a, can you imagine? Can you imagine that being a very, very primitive? I am very primitive. I can imagine it quite easily.
I know what you mean. Yeah. Just trying to explain and understand things without knowing the science or whatever.
Yeah.
You describe the world in terms that you understand as you're writing that history, and if your understanding of the world is of spirits and nature, gods, or whatever you want to call it, then everything is explained in that way, doesn't it? And then it evolves over time. But the power of those stories, those myths, I mean, it's incredible that they persisted through centuries, millennia, to have, so that now in 2025, in this world of AI and everything else, we're still watching a story from the 1970s about an alien disguised as the devil, and the power of that folklore is what drives this story to a huge degree. So that's what I love about this stuff. Whether I believe it or not is another matter entirely, but I love these kind of stories.
I do. I agree with you. I think the sort of the it was still at a time when folklore, I think, was arguably more powerful than it possibly is. See, there's a great Pertwee comedy moment. He's kind of doing.
It's running in a straight line away from the guy shooting at him.
But this crypt set is just fabulous.
It really is.
And blue lights in the background, and
that camera shot as well with Mike and Joe hiding behind that. What is it, like a spear rack or something? Is it a circular spear rack? What I love about this, I can't remember we said it before actually, but the fact, I think you mentioned it, Al, actually, the fact the unit guys get a really good outing in this story, don't they? We see them out in civvies, but doing what unit does. It's no wonder that I think the cast and crew of this all hold this story in such great affection, because they must have had an absolute ball making it. It's got something for everybody, isn't it?
Well, wasn't it? You know.
Well, yeah, I guess it was, but I mean, don't forget, it's only the second year of that production team. Already the end of the first year, wasn't it? Because the season 7 was the old crew, pretty much, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So this was quite early on in the scheme of things, but it feels so solid. You know, the production. Yes, it's old, but it looks like they put a lot of thought. You know, Barry Letts directing this has just sold the reality of this place in the world.
I think that's right, and I think when you get directors, and like I don't know who the director of this was, but I was watching Jaws
doing it.
Yeah, I was watching Jaws with Harrison the other week, and we were up in a conversation. I said, look, the reason that Jaws is so great is because I think we talked about this, didn't we?
Yeah.
But you know, things didn't work and it didn't go right, and less is more sometimes.
But
don't see much of the fish.
Yeah, the original Alien.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just a guy in a suit. Strange.
Do you think Roger Delgado would have continued, because this was his last real big story, wasn't it? He was kind of essentially sidelined. Was it this one? He sidelined. He came back like one story at least per the next couple of series, doesn't he? And I think he was going to come back for Planet of the Spiders, because there's that character Lupton in Planet of the Spiders who essentially takes on a master role. I think originally that was going to be the master, i.e. Delgado, but sadly circumstances prevented that. That must have had a horrendous effect on the whole lot of them, because they were
I think it did that. Yeah.
Tight-knit group.
Well, that was one of the reasons that John left in the end, wasn't it?
It was. I mean, apparently that, and the fact it was on Planet of the Spiders, apparently he had a, I don't know if it's true, but on Planet of the Spiders he didn't have a good experience, whether it was the director or just the location or whatever, but that was the point at which he basically went, bugger this, I'm off, kind of thing. So,
really?
Yeah, it was. And then what I find fascinating is the people that were potentially in the running for the Doctor.
Oh, like Ron Moody and what have you.
Ron Moody, Fulton Mackay.
Fulton Mackay, that was it.
Who's
Morris
Ron Moody?
dancers.
Ron Moody would have been.
Yeah, he was big in the 70s, 60s and 70s, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Big character actor of the day. What do you know what? I mean, I don't live far from this village, and...
But you've never been?
Well, no, I was just thinking, I don't get Morris Men.
It is all about, it's basically sex and drugs and rock and roll. So
it must be what it is. Because you've got to be on something to prance around wearing toilet rolls stuck to you like that.
It is. It's all about, you dancing around the pole. Dancing around the pole, wonder what that could represent. There's a bit of bondage going on. You got you're being smacked on the
head, hitting each other with sticks and balloons.
It's all kind of sort of subtly, and I'm sure it's kind of, as it's gone on, I'm sure modern dancers.
It is getting one up the backside. Yeah, well, bend over, lads! It's crumpet time.
It's hot crumpets and jam served in the tent later.
First years, line them up as a crumpet rack.
Oh, God, what's that from?
Is it from Blackadder? I think it's something like that.
Oh, it's Blackadder, but I think it goes. Isn't it over? Isn't it oh God, over the end? Who ripping yarns with?
With Michael Palin.
Michael Palin.
Yeah, it's those kind of public school type things, isn't it?
Now, here's an interesting
Cambridge-y
fact. That's
stuff.
the Indiana Jones gun with a shorter barrel.
Is it really?
Not that you cared. and it's even got the
true.
correct sight. That's a bit brutal.
This is kind of weird now, isn't it? Because the Doctor's been manhandled by the Morris dancers.
Well, it's a bit.
It's
That's what I'm saying. It's all a bit saucy. It's a bit kind of.
It's kind of Wicker Man again, isn't it? Again, like we said last time with those Hammer stories and that weird sort of this village is up to no good kind of thing. There are secrets at the heart of this village.
I don't know if you guys have ever had a chance, having, as I say, dipped in.
Oof. Miss Hawthorne stuck in one on the back of the bottom stair for sure.
Having dipped into ITVX.
Oh yes,
Pennyworth.
Oh
which is,
yes, yeah. I started watching that.
That is a fabulous series.
It's brutal, but totally mesmerising. Mate,
God, it's
Paloma Faith is there as what's her name? I forget her name, but she's brilliant.
Yes,
in that, as the bad guy.
I was staggered. My brother basically said, "Oh, you should watch this," and I was like, "Okay, fine." Then 6 months later, I did, and I was like, "Oh my God, you were absolutely right."
Yeah, I didn't expect it to be anything like that. I found out later it was supposed to be in the V for Vendetta type universe or somewhere aligned to that.
Yeah, it's
in some way, which I hadn't quite realised. Yeah. I realised it was an alter because they got the airships and all kinds of stuff going on, isn't it? I love that aesthetic. I think it's great. But it's quite hard watch in some places, I think. But
it is. There's some bits I found really uncomfortable. With Alistair Crowley, and it's clear that something happened to her, but it's not made explicit, which is a good thing. But yeah.
And here we go. We got a villager saying, "Burn him! Burn him! Burn the witch!" Brilliant.
Do you know? Every time I go to my
my daughter say, "Burn the witch!" Just yells that.
Have you been to this village, Paul?
I've never been there. No, it's Oldbourne, isn't it? It's, I've
look. There's the graphics on the screen, top right.
Yeah. Frontos. Are they saying stuff backwards here? Are they just reciting a nursery rhyme backwards or something when they do this chanting?
Whoa.
There we go. This is proper Wicker Man territory now, isn't it? Burn the Doctor. He's got bits of the Daily Express stapled to him.
Whenever I go to my kids' school, in the hall, they have a maypole, and I always think about this story when I see it, yeah.
This is again quite uncomfortable viewing, because I know it's small scale and it ain't no Wicker Man, but that's...
It's still quite, you know...
A man standing there with a naked flame next to flammable material...
Yeah, and your lead actor is right in the middle of this.
Tied.
Yeah. That's what I mean. It's like health and safety in the 70s was somebody else's problem, basically, wasn't it?
Well, I'm not quite sure why he's got all that newspaper on him.
No. It's Morris dancing, mate.
I've never seen a Morris dancer like that. They got bells all over them.
That maybe this is some kind of divergent branch of Morris dancing?
Maybe.
Morris dancing? I don't know.
What is it? Forest dancing.
Boris dancing. Maybe there's different fraternities of Morris dancing. We don't talk to them lot over there. They're the ones who staple like newspapers to their outfits. We just bells.
They're red tops. These are broadsheet.
Exactly.
Broadsheet.
Who was in the front of Judea? You.
Yeah. Oh, someone's got a long pistol. So these numpty villagers don't realise that their magical shenanigans, which is these miracles of the devil, are actually somebody firing at them with a pistol and a silencer. You think you'd shoot the man with it? Shoot the man with the newspapers, Ben, and don't shoot the weathercock. You're not scaring me with a lot of damn tricks.
If you look at the people at the back, steadily their expressions get less and less interested. And a bit of eye rolling is going on.
Because they're like, it's bloody cold out here, actually. It's a lot of fun taking part in this Doctor Who thing, but it's bloody cold.
That's what everyone thinks. Oh, yeah, I'll be an extra on a show or film. That sounds great fun. Then they realise what's involved. And it's suddenly
waiting around for 7 hours.
Yeah.
It's not boring. It's fun.
Have you taken leave of your senses?
Oh, Bessie's driven by magic. Even Benton's surprised at this. Bless him.
But if we remember back to part 1...
Indeed. Remote control, Joe.
Talking of Broom, when I was on work experience many years ago, one of the jobs I had to do was watch episodes of children's TV and log moments such as someone going, amazing, from Broom, so that when they made the advert to say, Broom is now available on DVD, it could have someone go, amazing. So one of the things I had to watch was Broom to do that. I don't ever want to watch Broom again.
it's
amazing.
Seared deep into your memory. You got PTSD from Broom. Whoa, what do you mean that yellow car with eyes? Where? Yeah, so he's saying something backwards, isn't he?
It ain't no Excalibur, is all I can say.
Oh, now you're talking. There's a film with atmosphere.
I'm slightly behind you guys because mine won't stop for some reason, but Benton just did an unnecessary leap off the side of Bessie there, which was pretty cool.
You are a little bit behind.
Yeah. We're having a bit of a showdown with the Master and the Crypt.
Yeah, I love doing this, yeah. Rock on.
Yeah, you're a couple of 20 seconds behind us, maybe.
This story is an interesting resolution, which obviously
Azal's getting up again.
The end feels more of a cop-out than it should.
Do you think?
Well,
it's because, I mean,
I'm conflicted.
Azal is growing. Azal is becoming large again and revealing himself. And we see his face for the first time there, don't we? That
I was
mask.
Say it was hidden earlier.
I have to say the makeup is excellent. I mean, there's nothing bad about any of this. It's done. It's funny. I get distinct. I don't know why, but I get distinct Talons of Wang Chiang vibes off this, in the sense of it's that mix of really good sort of studio stuff with really good location work that's slightly uncomfortable to watch.
And a very shouty villain who just mostly does shouting a lot.
Why?
What do you mean?
I think
Doctor?
It being slightly uncomfortable is quite good, because we should be, challenged a bit when we watch things. It shouldn't always be, super happy and sunshine and rainbows. And, it's like when people say, oh, I didn't like it that so-and-so did this in a show. Well, sometimes, people make mistakes, don't they? They do dumb things in life, and, that's what makes characters interesting, I think.
Yeah.
I'll go back to the same thing, that there's some quite adult themes in these stories, and they didn't kind of dumb it down for kids.
No, not too much. No, they're quite respectful of
I can imagine
intelligence, weren't they?
Would have been watching this and sort of probably kind of staying with the plot, but so there is some quite. But I guess that's what good TV does: is it works on different levels for different folks.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Big monster of the week is,
the devil.
The devil. Small monster of the week is a gargoyle that animates, and that's basically your precursor to Blink, which is the terrifying statue coming to life.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it's kind of, and then we got a bit of CSO at the end, haven't we? With him sort of growing larger and tearing up.
Yeah, and actually, pretty good CSO.
It's quite, because he sort of turns midway, doesn't he? As we get the back of his legs.
Yeah, it's pretty well done.
Zoom on the mask. And of course, I was going to say as well, because one of the other things that makes it feel uncomfortable is there's like a claustrophobic edge to this story, because they're all enclosed in the heat dome. So he can't get police rushing in and saving the Doctor's life at the maypole and stuff like that. Because that's what normally would happen, wouldn't it? You know what I mean? It's like,
it is, and
it's some way of keeping out the outside world.
That's a very good point, and I wonder why they did that, because that whole thing of Unit being trapped outside, it's a bit of a damp squib at the end of the day, isn't it? Really, arguably.
Well, eventually they sort the dome out and get in and shoot everything, and it's kind of done in a blink of an eye in a way, isn't it?
Yeah,
But
you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
had they been inside the barrier, I suppose it's just that thing of too many people to kind of keep up.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, and it's a way of stopping Unit from actually sorting everything out very quickly. I guess.
Getting it done too quickly.
And I guess also if you cut off Unit's command by having the Brigadier unable to kind of bark orders at everybody, maybe it is just one of those things where they just decided to let certain people shine. You know, Yates.
Yeah, because we get more Benton and Yates.
That's one of the biggest turnarounds.
Most of the stories
that I really didn't like. I never settled with the idea that Yates would kind of betray everyone.
Oh, I love that. I love that idea. Yeah, because I just thought it's just a character thing. You know, there's consequences to what's happened to him. So the Green Death, where he's undercover, isn't it? And he comes under the influence of the Metabolist crystal, and then the next time we see him, he's on Operation Golden Age, apparently a bad guy, and he's turned, and then we see him again as a sort of redemption in Planet of the Spiders, you know, where he's come good again, and I love that. You know, it wasn't often that we got those little turnarounds of character, especially not in a relatively minor character, you know.
I suppose that's true. Maybe it's just that I didn't like it rather than I can't rationalise it or settle with it. But it seemed for somebody who was in that position of authority and more. But then maybe they're the more easily swayed ones at the end of the day.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Mike Yates, very regimental. Exactly. Yeah, makes him susceptible. He's already been broken down and built up again, so potentially someone could do the same kind of thing, perhaps. Are we cracking on with episode 5 then? What do you think? Are you running it or not?
Episode, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
So we probably should really, shouldn't we?
We might as well.
Okay, let's load it up.
Are you watching it now? Oh, I'll just let mine run.
Oh,
about
okay.
10 minutes into it.
I didn't. But what mark are you at, Paul?
I'll just pause there. I'm at 4 minutes 11.
Okay,
perfect.
All right, I'll skip forward to there as well. Go. Okay.
Go. So you got Hawthorne and the Doctor in the village.
Ionic forces.
Forces.
I said that I listened to Quintessence recently.
Oh yeah.
You listened to that, Al, and it was so good. I want to listen to some more Tim Churall Third Doctor stuff.
He's good, isn't he?
He is really good. Yeah.
He is very good. There are a couple of stonking stories with him. Really good Dalek story.
Which one is that?
With him and Katie, and he's very good. He's got that same thing with Big Finish that the Fourth Doctor kind of has for me, which is sometimes are good stories, but they just end up being a little bit flat.
I know what you mean. Right? Yeah.
You know, I've always said I like the Fourth Doctor when he's a little bit snitty and snappy and not quite as necessarily nice.
Yeah.
But that's not who Tom Baker is now. He's the benevolent, friendly Fourth Doctor. So, and I think it's quite... But there's been a couple of stories where he's kind of been a little bit more arsey and stuff. And actually, I think it sort of works well. But
yeah, I agree. Yeah, it kind of gives another light on the character, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I think this one benefits from that as well. Certainly in the early episodes when the Doctor is in a really pretty pissed off mood, and walks into when he walks into the pub and he's taking charge, and they don't let him take charge. I love that. And then by now he's kind of in his standard sort of Third Doctor mode. You know, but
that also is a good observation. That I think lead actors with huge control or a double-edged sword, I suppose. I mean, like I say, I absolutely love the Fourth Doctor. He can do no wrong in my eyes. But the Third Doctor, as a counterpoint to that, is, he will always try and persuade people that they're doing things wrong, but he maybe he doesn't force the situation in the way that maybe the Fourth Doctor would.
No, and I think he's less patient as well. Actually, he loses temper quite easily, doesn't he? You know, when he's up against an immovable force, like the man from the Ministry or something. You, sir, are a nitwit. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
The perfect example of an absolute fool.
Yes, you do. Far better than I do. Well, here we got a gadget.
It's his slight lisp, which
yeah.
quite.
So now we've got all the people who lived in the village were taking part in this, weren't they? Now they were all the extras.
Yeah.
Which must have been really lovely feeling, you know, with everybody in there, all your friends and neighbours, the people you go down the pub with, the kids you go to school with, all of that. You know, your friends, your fam.
Favourite master, Paul? Where would you pin your?
You sprung that one on me, didn't you?
Yeah.
I don't know, because they're all really different. I love them all for different reasons. I think Delgado, nobody can do what Delgado does here. He's just so deliciously suave and smooth and just relishing the lines that he gets.
Yeah.
And the moments when he swings from between the Doctor's best friend to his best enemy. You know, I love the Time Monster for that. And we see so many sides of Delgado's master throughout those 6 episodes. We get the disguise at the start, we get the Doctor's friend, we get them working together, he's working against him, and then right at the end of the Time Monster he does this mad laugh that is so like Sacha Dhawan's master. It's just unreal. I think, so saying that probably Delgado, but then I love Ainley as well, his pantomime villain, smooth, underrated kind of.
Yeah, I mean,
you underestimate me, Doctor.
I think that's right. I've always found Ainley a bit pantomime villain. I'll get crucified for that.
I know, but I mean it in a nice sort of way, because the other thing that happens to Ainley's master as well is he ends up turning cat, doesn't he, in survival. Something happens to him that we don't. And I love the mystery of that. What happened to the master? You know, I know it's kind of explained through the stories and definitely in the novel, but you know, it's that desperation of the master being on his final, beyond his final regeneration, because he stole that body, didn't he?
It is, and you've got all the whole thing about him being the morphant snake as well in the TV movie, and that sort of thing that he, and then again it's a big Finnish audio, but the master that gets sucked into the Eye of Harmony in the TARDIS in the TV movie eventually falls through the vortex and arrives on somebody's spaceship, and that sort of arch manipulation that's going on.
Yeah, I love Eric Roberts' master as well, because again in the movie, because he's just so camp. I always dress for the occasion. I love that line.
That's what I mean. The big Finish kind of took him and actually gave him some space to kind of reinterpret.
Yeah.
I don't like. I have to be honest. I don't like the Sacha Dhawan master.
Oh really?
I don't like the John Sim master for this exactly the same reason. Is that they're too freaking mad.
I think John Sim in Sound of Drums, or whichever one it is, when he takes on the cabinet, and he's I love that joke where he says he gives them all he's got a mask or something, they say, what's the mask for, and he goes like that, and he goes, what's the mask for? Oh, the mask, it's for the gas, and then the gas comes out and kills everybody. I love that, just the visual comedic comicness of it.
But he became sort of more and more psychotic up until the point where Missy took over, and she was. I thought Michelle Gomez was absolutely brilliant. And
absolutely.
But then it just went absolutely hat stand again at the end, and I was like,
no, I don't know, because
I have a feeling
you get that trauma of the master killing himself or herself over twice. They kill each other in that moment at the end of the World Enough and Time. The Doctor Falls, isn't it? And they both laugh because the delicious irony of the master killing the master, both past and future, and the paradox that would spring up.
Yeah,
it's just brilliant. I think that is Stephen Moffat's finest piece of Doctor Who writing for me. I watched it and I just thought that just
it was clever. Yeah,
I love.
And then
that.
And then what happens afterwards? You know, so the Mars at the end of a black hole in his ship and Cybermen and blah 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 and everything else. It's perfectly reasonable to me that trauma would result in something a bit like Sasha's Master, particularly when you look at the Big Finish stories, Call Me Master, which I was just listening to a few weeks back.
Yeah.
They kind of fill that gap a little bit, you know. So it's he's trying to understand who he is and what his pain is.
Yeah.
You know, he's a tortured, hurt master, and he's not well. You know, he's really not.
No, and there's a couple of very good Big Finish audios that are multi-master stories where they kind of basically end
I
up.
haven't heard any of those.
So
But
some
that
really
sounds
good
fun.
ones. I won't spoil it, but in essence, they kind of, the fact that they have all caused big problems and they're all basically trying to persuade each other not to, and it's so against their nature. It's amazing.
I liked John Sim, and then I thought when he came to the end of time, I remember thinking, oh, he creates the master race. I thought was quite funny and quite clever. But then he's running around going, hungry, and all of this. And I thought it's swerving, you know, from sort of one thing to another.
I like that bit, but I didn't necessarily like the master race kind of thing. I thought, you know, that need for food, for energy, just to keep this, you know, this whatever he's got at the heart, keeping him alive. He's just got to keep it fed more and more and more. I enjoyed that. That's for me is what drove him to absolute desperation. And then again, you've got the master race. Well, it's a clever play on words. You know, they all look like the master.
Probably why I thought it was
But
funny.
it's the most wonderful expression of the master's ego. Everyone should be like me because I am the master. You know what I mean? So it makes beautiful sense, even though, you know, like it in a way.
I liked Sasha's Master, and I've really enjoyed his the Big Finish stuff. I said to Paul,
definitely.
His cackle is brilliant. He's maniacal.
It's good.
But he switches between, you know, kind of crazy, sort of silly and fun, and then, you know, pretty vicious and mean. But he, like you said, Paul, he's quite tortured as well, and trying to sort of find himself. And, you know, and in the series, he's, you know, kind of insanely jealous of the Doctor the whole time, and what he doesn't have that the Doctor does. I like Delgado as well. I just sort of think there's something kind of Bond villainy about him.
Delgado is very well rounded as a character, which I think is why he's always seen as the archetype. He kind of is. He's the Sean Connery of Masters, isn't he? He's the original one that kind of, you know, and there's been variants thereof.
So now we've got a bit of a
shot there.
Well, that's is that CSO again, or is it just somebody standing in front of the camera pointing an arm out?
I think he's
in the
just
full
very
range?
close to camera.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
So the camera's up high, so it's on a crane or cherry picker or something, is it? I guess.
I love that Joe's been put in sacrificial dress.
Of course she has. Some things,
just
some boxes
order
have
that
got to be
online.
ticked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is total 1970s devil worshipping mad village kind of territory, isn't it? They
Isn't it weird? I was just looking at John Pertwee there and thinking, if his hair had been cut short, he would have not stood out in that.
Oh, that's interesting.
In the way that he does, because he has the big hair going on.
He looks like a tall light bulb.
Here's a question now. Would you do a Capaldi figure with his massive hair that he had at the end?
The big buffon.
I would. I really loved the Capaldi series. I think I'm massively conflicted on it because I have absolutely no doubt about it that the choice of actor alienated some of the audience. I just think we'd had young dynamic lead, young attractive assistant, young dynamic lead, young attractive assistant, young dynamic lead, blah blah. And then suddenly it switched. And I know that my daughter Jasmine, who had been, you know, followed David intensely, followed Matt intensely, was instantly turned off by that.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Just by that alone?
So that's literally the point at which she stopped watching. But arguably, I think some of the stories are fabulous. You know, Mummy on the Orient Express is still one of my favourite stories.
Yeah, it's great.
I think there is some great stuff in the final season. There is some stuff that's not quite as good. Kill the Moon is a story I detest passionately, but you know, it's not there for
more fun.
You know, Doctor Who should always be pushing boundaries, and I think if it doesn't, and if we liked everything.
I'm surprised as a fellow Clara fan that you say that, considering she essentially gets to lead that episode.
I think you've upset Geoff now.
I am a very big Clara fan, as you know.
Yeah.
Not that I would ever admit to the same levels of obsession that you have, Geoff. But, I am Clara fan, but I would say I would counterpoint that by saying Flatline, because I think Flatline, she is infinitely better and more front and center than she is in Kill the Moon, because Kill the Moon is such a rocky story.
The only way you can read Kill the Moon is it's an allegorical story, isn't it? That's it, really. You know, if you start applying actual logic to it, the whole thing kind of just falls apart. And don't even get me started on the science. But as an allegory, it just about kind of works, I think. But yeah, whereas Flatline is just a really good, solid Doctor Who adventure with a brilliant monster, and Clara takes charge. She takes the Doctor's role, and in doing so, she absolutely shines through it.
Could we get
a whole thing of like every moment? I mean, as a tension builder, it's
brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wait, we should watch that. We should do some Clara. But not
we watched it a while ago. We got.
Could we get a Clara Doctor figure? You know, in that green jacket and stuff.
Is this a personal wish now?
Well, it's interesting you say that. I'm working on 2026, and assuming everything that we do for this year works, I have a very significant plan for 2020.
We're about to blow up the church.
One of which I will be up front and say includes a Clara option. Potentially.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Just as the church explodes.
Or set in stone. It exploded purely and simply because Clara was mentioned. You do understand.
That's it. That's what blew up the church.
The church felt it went back in time. Al and I's love for Clara sent shockwaves back in time.
It did. It sent quantum ripples.
Yeah. As it was being recorded, and now it's captured for all of time. In the Demons Part 5, yeah.
Time and space is fluid. What happens in the future can affect the past. We only think time flows in one direction. So there you go.
It's a wibbly wobbly.
Have you seen some of the weird science that's been emerging in the last couple of weeks? Things like the fact that we could actually be inside a black hole and basically looking out at the universe.
I love that idea. I love all of that shit.
Some of the information seems to suggest that we might have already
passed beyond the event horizon.
But then
we're currently getting squeezed into a singularity as we speak. We're just not aware of it.
Yeah, but then it doesn't quite work with the fact that we know the universe is still expanding. So
we can see beyond it. So
which is it?
Unless the whole of the universe is actually getting sucked into a massive black hole.
There's some amazing stuff. They've found this massive substructure underneath the pyramids.
That's the sort of thing. What is it?
Yeah.
You know,
there's a Doctor Who story waiting to happen, and they found a very Earth-like planet that's twice the size of Earth, outside the solar system.
Really? Is it called Pandora?
Which has gases that indicate that there may be carbon-based life there. Science is kicking off, man. It's all very exciting.
It's all happening, mate. Yeah. And there's some weird kind of helical structure that they've observed at the centre of the universe, allegedly.
What?
Yes. which
like
mirrors DNA.
DNA spiral. You know, the DNA double helix. They mapped out a pattern in the shapes of various shit.
The James Webb Telescope is sort of throwing up,
pulling out all sorts of stuff, isn't it? But I love that idea of this massive structure beneath the one of the pyramids. It immediately put me in mind of Forbidden Planet, you know, and they go below into that whole thing just kind of opens out. I love that.
Yeah.
And now the Master has been driven away in the back of a Jeep with Benton still pointing a gun at him, is he? I think. But I love the way the Jeep goes round the village green, just drives right over that grass, and then back on.
I'll see you at the village fete in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Bring an ice cream.
Must be time for a Guinness, what? Come along, Brigadier.
That is the ending line, isn't it? I think
it is, actually. Yeah. He's off for a pint. And you can imagine, like, everybody literally just doing that as well, apart from the technical crew who's got to put everything back into flight cases.
Come on,
Brilliant.
Joe, we've got Bessie's time.
Nonsense, Sergeant. Do they have a little dance as well? Fancy a dance, Brigadier? I love it. Kind of Captain Yates. Rather have a pint. That's brilliant. I love it. And then there's more dancing around the magic pole.
It's so good.
See, I love that. The Doctor says you're right, Joe. There is magic in the world after all.
Don't they?
Yeah. But let me just say that lovely line from the Doctor there. So we had all of this opening up with the Doctor saying magic is nonsense, it's all about science. And now he's saying there is magic in the world, but it's the magic that springs from being in a relationship with people, being in friendship, being in love, just enjoying the moment. It's that spirit of the time right there, and that makes you feel so good about everything that's going on. Yeah. That's what he understands. That's what he comes to understand at the end of this story. I love it. It's almost like being faced with the devil himself. Sort of opens the Doctor up to just making that leap of intuition and just getting that message.
I think also it's difficult to It's difficult to underestimate the kind of, like, they've all kind of faced death in that episode. You know, it sounds basically like we're coming to the end of this experiment and the whole planet's going, because it was just that it's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It was an experiment and it's over, you know, and then each of them individually has faced some sort of personal trial or injury. So there's a lot.
You're right. Absolutely right.
I think you're right. I think there's a bunch going on.
Yeah, it's a wonderful story to end that season on, you know, and to I think, you know, this really now cements the third Doctor in his place in Doctor Who history, doesn't it? It's, you know, he's just so much the Doctor now. At the end of his second season, some really, I mean, I do hear that, you know, the Doctor was often seen as being upstaged by the Master, or maybe Pertwee felt that was kind of happening. But, you know, when you look at these stories and when you watch them, the Doctor is still the Doctor. He's always the Doctor. He's always central to all of these stories. But what makes them feel kind of vibrant is the humanity of all the other characters around him. The Brigadier, Joe Grant, Mike Yates, Benton, and the Master. It's that family. They all talk about this family feel, but it's absolutely there. And I think that's what really is cemented by the end of this story. It's like a really wonderful place to pop in and watch from, you know, during these stories. If that makes any sense at all, I don't know. It's getting late.
It does. I think once they'd kind of, I agree with you. I think once they gelled that team together, it gave them a little bit more leeway to try more experimental stuff.
Yeah, because then they almost forget about it in the next series, then, don't they? They're sort of trying to get back into space. It's like we've done the Earthbound stuff now. We need to get the Doctor back up there into space. So they have things like
so we
Curse of Peladon,
Daleks, Peladon, Sea Devils, which was a
which gets rid of UNIT but replaces them with the Navy, doesn't it? So it's the same but different kind of thing. So it's playing around with you know, those. It's almost like having worked to establish those kind of pillars or tropes or whatever they are, you know, those familiar cornerstones of this era. They then start dismantling them from the next season onwards, or at least phasing them out, and then trying other things, adding to the vocabulary, moving on the next series. This is such a good example of how Doctor Who continues to move. You look at the Pertwee era, and the common perception is that, well, it was all the stories happened on Earth. Well, they didn't. The first season 7, is very different to season 8, which this story is the end of, and then season 9 again is different, and then season 10, the 10th anniversary season, the Doctor is free to wander back into space and time. We get things like the Green Death, the Planet of the Daleks, those sort of stories. And then, of course, in this final season, it's changed yet again. We got Sarah Jane Smith, we got the Sontarans, we got Spiders, we got Lupton. So it's constant evolution throughout all of Pertwee's eras. Not one of his stories is exactly the same as another. There is a bit of a template, but it's pushed, it's moved, it's changed as the whole era progresses, and I love that. Any time when Doctor Who just fits in one box and it should always be like this, that's when it finishes. I think it has to keep moving forward.
Is it?
And on that note,
I think that's no, I think that's right. I think that's spot on the money.
I'll take that.
This has been great fun watching this back and talking about it, as well as a bunch of other stuff. So I'm up for more if you guys are.
Absolutely, my dog.
We will have to. We'll have to
Let's
wait.
do June next.
So I'm busy that day.
Yes, we'll do that. Show Geoff what a real sci-fi movie's like.
Yeah, followed by Avatar.
Yes, please. So, Al's off to Hong Kong for a little bit, and then we're going to plan a live stream, aren't we, for end of April? So between the three of us,
we're going to give it a go.
Yeah,
get our
live stream, and hopefully I can send you guys some stuff, or we might be able to do something while I'm in Hong Kong. I don't know. We'll see.
Yes,
we'll see how it
yes,
goes.
we're going to see what we can do for that. Yeah. So we've got quite a few exciting things that we're brainstorming, aren't we?
Well, brain.
Difficult in my case.
Use the word brain.
It's brain.
Yeah.
Storming.
Storming, sure.
Storming.
Yeah, definitely storming. Definitely that. Right, on that note then, listeners, thank you for listening. Gotta have, which we don't, so not even between us. But hey, that's where the fun is. Listeners, thank you for listening. Watchers, thank you for watching. Until next time, enjoy whatever you're doing, and we'll see you again on Who Corner's Corner. Bye for now.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.